All right, brand new recording. I was actually starting to record this, and then the stupid ass construction noise kept going on. So I stopped. I said, you know what? I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna watch Star Trek Picard, season 3, the last episode. Now, if you've seen my tweets or whatnot, you know that this show just gets me right in the heart. Because Star Trek The Next Generation, to me, is like some of the pinnacle television that has ever occurred. Groundbreaking, barrier breaking, all that other stuff. Regardless, the initial video I wanted to make is now in the back burner because I watched the show and then I came to do this video, and I just completely... You can still see some of my eyes might be a little red because I was crying, because that's what this show does to me. But the shift in the narrative that I wanted to sort of come across here is legacy. I wanted to talk a little bit about legacy and how this could kind of, translate to Flesh and Blood and etc. Because everybody's out there we are in the original series on the timeline. We are in the original Trek part of Flesh and Blood's history. Everybody's out there trying to blaze trails in Starfleet. Not everyone is going to be a Kirk. Michael Hamilton is the Kirk, let's say. Not everyone is going to be a Sulu, whereas Brody Spurlock might be the Sulu. You know what? Michael Hamilton is Spock, just cold and calculated. Or is he Worf, like an absolute murderer? Doesn't matter. Either way, the whole point here is that in the early stages of the game, everybody wants to blaze trails and make a name for themselves. They want to establish legacy, and so many have already done so. But what we need to also understand is that while Trek at the time was groundbreaking in itself and it spawned such an amazing following as Flesh and Blood has, there's still so much runway for this game to go. There's so much time, there's so much opportunity for you yourself to go out there and to make your own legacy. But the difference here is that when I say that not everyone can be a Kirk, what I also want to convey is that not everyone needs to be a Kirk, and not everyone should be a Kirk in that regard, because if everybody was a Kirk, then there would be no Picard. If everybody was a Picard, there would be no Janeway. And if everybody was a Janeway, you'd never have the pure badassery that was Sisko. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they're all different captains from their own series. But they all showed up with different strengths and weaknesses. They all had their strengths and flaws, and they all had their levels of success. Because if you're going to put Kirk up against Picard, that's a fair debate. That's absolutely a fair debate. Whereas Kirk has, done so much and has blazed so many trails, and Picard has done so much to really revolutionize the position as an explorer, as a Renaissance man as it is. You have opportunity for people to go out there and to explore new territory or to make their own names in different ways. And this is what I think in Flesh and Blood, for me as a broadcaster, this is what I'm talking about. Because myself as a broadcaster, I'm very much sometimes worried about what my legacy will be in this space as a card game broadcaster, as an esports broadcaster, but in general, in the grand scheme of things, as a broadcaster. It worries me, but I've always tried to do things the right way. Have I stumbled? Have I screwed up? Absolutely I have. But ultimately, that's the goal. Am I as big and famous and accomplished as others out there might be? For example, like, I'm just going to use other examples, like from the sports world, like, the legend Vin Scully, or the workhorse like Joe Buck or whatever. You may like them, you may not like them, but I'm not there, and I don't think I'll ever get there. I'm never going to get there. But at the same time, I need to understand that what I'm doing for myself is good enough, and it makes me happy, because when I look too far ahead of where I'm not, where I currently am not, it doesn't allow me to focus on where I've been. And that chunk of time, that amount of distance that I've traveled, that progress that I've made, is lost when I'm looking too far down the line. When I got my eyes in the binoculars and get that tunnel vision, I can't see anything but the far distant, place that I'm striving to be. I can't even see what's around me. I can't even appreciate that. And I think that in itself is important for Flesh and Blood players who might be out there struggling to say, like, hey, I'm never going to win a tournament. I'm never going to top 8 a calling. I can barely even I've squeaked into a top 8 at an RTN, let's say. Like, these are some genuine concerns that I myself have actually struggled with. And I want to also talk about this with everybody, because you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't worry about the legacy of where you are today, as it were, when where you want to be is so far down the line. Like, you should just continue to chug forward. This is very difficult. Again, this is completely off the cuff, because what I wanted to talk about not an hour and a half ago is completely derailed by the fact that I just cried my eyes out watching Star Trek Picard. It's the way of the world, but it does bring some things to light, that what you're doing right now matters. What you're doing right now is good. The work that you're putting in, the effort that you're putting in now, you might not see the dividends, but look back on where you were a year ago in your progress, in card gaming and wherever you are. And this is very universal, but I want to leave this and honed in on Flesh and Blood, because a lot of people will worry about whether it's worth it to continue grinding if they fathomably will never win a calling or never win a battle hardened. But that's okay. And that's the important part. It's not always about being the best at something. It's being the best that you can be at something. And that's perfectly fine, because you're not up against anyone else out there when it comes to legacy. You're up against the person across the table from you in that given moment. Your legacy is your own, and you can be proud of that, and you could add to it as you go. But if everybody wants to be a Kirk, everybody wants to be a Michael Hamilton, there can only be one, and that's totally okay. And things change, because for the longest time, people like James T. Kirk were the absolute tits of USS, Starfleet captains. And then Picard rolls around, and he had no legacy. And now he's got a pretty awesome one that is completely separate and different and unique from James T. Kirk. And now you've got Janeway and Cisco. And now you've got people like Captain Pike and all the other awesome shows that are out there. And I understand it's all fantasy, but there's lessons to be learned here, is that when Kirk was established as this just untouchable, legendary captain and Picard rolls in, there's no debate. But over time, digging in, making progress, you can see that these people, these fictional characters as they were, are building up to something that you can then spark the debate of maybe who's better, Kirk or Picard. But right now, you can't have that debate. Who's better, you or Michael Hamilton? Who's better, you or Brody Spurlock? Well, that's no debate. I hate to tell you, you're not as good as them. Unless you are them, in which case, thanks for listening. But you don't have to be. And you may want to be, but you don't have to be right now. So use that fuel to continue to improve upon what you're doing, and not worry about where you are in the cosmos, when it's okay to be the planet orbiting the star, because there's some pretty cool shit that goes on in there. So you don't have to be the focal point. You don't have to be the center of that universe, because that shifts. The universe expands. Everything goes crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about here, but I have a feeling that this is what I wanted to talk about today on this silly little diatribe show that I do. So if you're out there struggling in Flesh and Blood or in card games or in life in general because you feel like you're inadequate in comparison to everything else, and I've been there, I've had these discussions. Sometimes I think of things like, well, why am I playing if I can't win? Because you're missing everything that's around you. If you're just looking at a destination that's so far away, you're missing the beauty that's all around you. And when you look in the rearview mirror and you say, damn, that was pretty damn cool, and wow, that was so long ago, you have to appreciate it. So appreciate what's in front of you and never stop striving towards that end goal. You may never get there, but you'll come so far so far and be so proud of your achievements. So keep grinding and do it the best way you can. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.